All right. We're talking about writing a competitive offer, and it's a timely topic right now because uh, most often in today's environment, if you're representing a buyer, there's probably going to be multiple offers on the table. So that's kind of the world that we're facing. And so wouldn't it be cool if most of the time you wrote an offer for a buyer, they were the ones that got the transaction? And there's a lot of opportunity to do that. So we're going to talk about how could you position your buyer so that they can win in a multiple offer environment. All right. So one of the things I like to tell is a story that Larry Kindle shared. And really, this could be, with the tight inventory, this could be a story from anywhere in the United States, including right here in Walla Walla. This was a home that came on the market in the Denver area, but every market has what we call a cream puff home. That means this home was ready to move in condition. It was an amazing location, and it was priced right. It's the dream home that, you know, when buyers want to go look at home, it's what everybody's looking for. And you know one of these when they come on the market. And many of you know when you see a home that the potential for multiple offers is really, really high. So this home hit the market, and it's interesting. NAR reported that for the homes that closed in May in the country, they averaged 3 offers on every home. And certainly here in our local market, there's lots of multiple offers going on. So in this market, this home hit the market, and there were 15 offers that came in. So imagine being the listing broker, having to sort all of those out. But 5 of them were buyers that needed financing. They were going to get a loan. So one of the things I love asking everybody at this point is, if there's 5 offers making a loan, how many of the buyers do you think included a pre-approval letter? Okay, meaning that they had already gone through underwriting. They were ready to buy a home, and all that needed to happen was the house needed to go through the underwriting process of getting appraised, et cetera, when they found the right house. But the buyer was through underwriting. So there's 5 offers. How many of the agents do you think worked with their buyer so that because there's multiple offers, you're putting your best foot forward? How many pre-approval letters do you think were included? Just 2. So 2 of the 5 offers, only 2 buyers had pre-approval letters indicating that they were through underwriting and ready to go. So just 2 of the 5. So now there are 10 cash offers. So with cash offers, how many do you think came and were presented with the verification of funds already attached? So the buyer's saying, seller, I'm going to pay you cash. And matter of fact, I've got a letter from my bank showing you that I've got the funds needed. They're liquid. They're ready to go. I'm ready to buy this house. So how many of the 10 cash offers do you think included that? Just 1. Just 1. And when you think about this, 15 buyers wrote and the offers and had them presented. And then they went to bed that night all with hopes and dreams that they would get this home. And what's really sad is there really weren't 15 offers, were there? There really were just 3 in the running. And so that was really, really sad. So just 3. And so one of the things that Larry Kindle did was he did some research to find out who wrote the 3 offers that had the 2 with the pre-approval letters, the 1 with the verification of funds right out the gate, found out they were indeed ninjas. So, you know, the way that we show up is really, really important. And right out of the gate, we can do things to make sure that our buyers win. Certainly pre-approval letters and verification of funds are 2 really important steps. So we want to position the buyers to win. So what we're going to cover real quick together is we're going to talk about pre-gaming it and making an offer clean and providing proof of financial strength. Really, really important. So you're going to have a game plan in advance of writing an offer, and you can have a letter from the buyer's lender stating that they have funds ready to go or that they're through underwriting before you even get started. We're going to talk about calling the listing broker and not just to find out if there's any offers coming in, but find out what the seller's dream offer is. We'll talk about that. Also, we're going to have you consider putting in your highest offer versus using an escalation clause and the value of that. And finally, we'll end with using 22AD, the additional down payment for low appraisal addendum. And so let's jump right in. This is a form that we have in our Dropbox. It comes to everyone who attends Ninja, and it's a strategy to win form. And basically what it allows you to do is to talk with your buyer a pre-game strategy that it's very likely that the home that they find there'll be multiple offers. So are they going to be willing to write a full price offer? Would they consider writing higher than list? How about an escalation clause? We're going to talk about that. Do they want to use an escalation? What's the upper limit? What's the highest they'd be willing to spend on this house? You can talk through inspection strategies, timing issues, financing, appraisal, and even seller expenses. Are there any seller costs that the buyer might want to offer covering to make their offer more attractive? So this is a tool. It's not meant to talk a buyer into or out of anything, but certainly it's important because they can write an offer that can be very, very strong, and certainly also find out their risk comfort level, because the higher you offer in price, there potentially is higher risk to the buyer. If you don't have an inspection, for example, that's a risky thing to do. However, there are things that make their offers strong. So this is a great tool to offer a pre-game strategy. The other one is use a consistent way of writing your offers. And this is another form we'll have available for you. We've handed up before, but it's the 5 negotiating points. And as you pre-game with your buyer, you can actually come up with a strategy of how they're going to write their offer. Matter of fact, if you fill out this little check sheet and a little consultation with your buyer, you have everything you need to go back to your office or to open up your computer and prepare the contract. And you have a little process for consistently making sure you never forget anything and you can move consistently through it. So that's that first step, is pre-game with your buyer and have a strategy so they're ready to act in a way that reflects a multiple offer situation, so they can present themselves with their best foot forward right out of the gate. The next one is call the listing broker. And by this, I don't mean just calling to find out if there's another offer in place and, asking them if more offers come in, please let you know. That's all important. But I want you to add something else. Ask them, tell me something, what your seller's dream offer, what would it look like? A listing broker will often tell you something or give you some insights that would allow you to write the offer out of the gate more in alignment with what the seller is looking for. Sharon's on this call. I know Sharon did one recently where she found out something about possession dates, and that if her buyer could write a 30-day escrow, that would put her offer potentially ahead of the others. And in talking with the buyer's lender, because the buyer had a strategy, they were already through underwriting, the lender felt very comfortable that they could meet the 30-day time frame. So by knowing that, by that conversation, what's your seller's dream offer, you can find out some great things that would allow you to write it out of the gate. And Sharon's buyer got the offer. So really cool story. Deliver the offer in person whenever possible. I know we're busy, but this is the opposite of what happens a lot of times. A lot of times it just shows up by email, right? And matter of fact, if you can't do it in person, at least go live with a phone call to make sure that the listing agent got it, and go over the highlights. Say, let me just cover a couple key things. You don't have to go over every little bit. They know offers, they receive a lot, but you could go over the highlights, like the summary, and do it by voice. So many people are doing this just email, and then they just kind of fire it off and see what happens. But you can go a long way if you'll have that conversation with the listing broker and find out these things. So that's strategy number 2. Number 3, it's a strategy of putting your best foot forward. What do I mean by that? Well, should you use an escalation clause or not? Sometimes an escalation clause works really, really well. You can have success. Are there times to maybe not use it? Well, let's talk about that a little bit. First of all, the math is complicated. You're relying on the listing broker, first of all, to have a comfort with escalation agreements, and many are addendums, and many don't. And then I don't care if you like the escalation clause or not, math is complicated. I know even sitting in Annie Fitzsimmons classes, she'll do an exercise to prove the point, and it looks very simple. And then the room does the math on the escalation clause, and nobody gets it right. Well, can you imagine if it's multiple offers and there's more than one escalation clause, and now these escalation clauses are escalating each other? It gets very, very complicated. And there are times when well-meaning listing brokers trying to do the math get it wrong. They make a mistake, which by the way, Annie recommends that we don't, if you represent a seller, you never sign one anyways. You don't make it part of the agreement. So right now you might be able to cut through the noise and consider just dropping out the escalation clause. But you know that part on the escalation clause where it says, what's the most you're willing to pay? You'd escalate by maybe $1,500 over other offers, but not to exceed, and you put that top amount. Stop for a minute and ask your buyer and say, you know, that top amount that most you're willing to spend for this house, tell me something. Knowing that there's multiple offers, if you got the house for that amount, would you be happy? Most buyers are going to say yes. And so would I then suggest to you that we just simply write the offer and put in your best foot forward? And often right now I've seen these offers rise to the top, they cut through the noise, and it's that price where the buyer feels good knowing that they got the house, but they also can understand that if somebody's willing to pay more, it's fine if somebody else gets it. Everybody has a different spot where that is. So consider dropping the escalation clause and go with the top price. The other tool is Form 22AD. It's noticed for increased down payment for low appraisal. So it's an increased down payment addendum. And basically it just allows your buyer, often your buyers is in this environment is offering more than list price. And the seller could be afraid of a low appraisal. So they're like, hey, it's great that buyer's going to give me $10,000 more, but I'm a little concerned that I'm not going to be able to, I'm not going to be able to, if there's a low appraisal, I'm not going to get that amount. It's going to all get flushed away, and then we'll be negotiating to find a way to close it, and it's going to close for a lot less. So this allows your buyer to say, okay, seller, I'm offering, for example, $10,000 more than ask. And if this appraises, maybe the appraiser says, you know, I see what the original list price is. I feel comfortable with that. I'm not going to appraise it for the 10,000 additional, even though there's multiple offers. And it's 10,000 low. This would be an opportunity for the buyer to give notice to the seller that in the event of a low appraisal, they would cover that difference with additional down payment up to $10,000. It could be any amount. This gives the seller peace of mind that your buyer will step up and the price will be good because they're going to bridge the gap. Now, certainly if there's something crazy and its low appraisal is even greater than the amount additional down payment that the buyer's willing to pay, it goes on again to have some low appraisal protections for your buyer, so that if you can't agree to terms, the buyer can get out of the transaction and get their earnest money back. But many buyers in this environment would be happy paying above ask, even knowing it's above what the appraisal may be, especially if it's a great home and they're going to own it 3 to 5 years. That extra 10,000 doesn't really make a difference. What really matters is that your buyer gets the home that they want. So all that is within reason. And so in summary, position your buyer to win, pre-game it, make it clean, provide proof of financial strength. Call the listing broker, find out what the seller's dream offer is. You may learn something that'll help you write it. Consider the highest price versus using the escalation, which can get complicated and confusing, and use 22AD, additional down payment for low appraisal. And you might just find that you're able to win more times than not, increase your batting average, if you will. So I'm going to come back to you guys on the call. Any questions on that about the use of these strategies or anything along those lines?